Hi, welcome to NUYU Voices Emerge podcast on today. And I am your host. We have some guests on tonight, Shireen Harris. And we are out here enjoying this weather. And I love nice, cool weather, as I have been saying. But what I want to talk to you about is anxiety. I'm learning this new thing now with YouTube, and it is a wonderful thing. So I will begin to start posting what the up and coming podcasts are in the little community area, and to let you know. But tonight we're going to talk about anxiety, and um, I was remembering there was a time when my father died that I was dealing with some anxiety back then, and I kind of shuffled it under and kept going because I'm a mom, a wife, and I was in school and I was just trying to just push through my grief at that time. And what I began to develop back then was panic attacks. My anxiety went to panic attacks, and I was hospitalized twice for that. And the doctor told me, he said, Mrs. Harris, he said, if we don't get past this anxiety, these panic attacks can turn into a heart attack. So, bringing up full circle, during the time of COVID, I developed something called a CSF leak, a cerebral spinal fluid leak through my left nostril. And we're going to talk about this. I laugh at it now, but we're going to get to a point where I can stop crying, and then I can actually really sit down and tell you all about it. My mother loves to use this word called catharsis. So when I can fully have that catharsis, that release about it, and not cry and get through the full story. But one night I was cooking dinner for my family. I had a wok, and my nose just started running. And then from that day, my nose just continued to keep running. Come to find out, a hole had popped in my head, and I had cerebral spinal fluid leaking from my head. Well, that whole process, and this was during COVID, and if you remember, during COVID, nothing else mattered but COVID at that time. The whole world shut down. So, make a long story short, to bring it up full circle, I had went through this whole process of anxiety coming back up because I was, as a full figure woman, I was at a weight of 423 pounds, and I had went to see a bariatric surgeon, and I was in that process to have that surgery. And again, the world shuts down. So I began this process to lose weight, and I got down to 380 pounds, because I couldn't have the surgery. So I did on my own, from 423 to 380. And then now I developed this CSF leak, and all of a sudden I can't do and work out in the gym, and I couldn't do the workouts that I used to. Mind you, I have a son who's a personal trainer and who has helped me on this path to get started to losing weight. And I was doing good. So I had to begin to start researching about anxiety and how I could get past it. And so I did. And I came across some devotionals and some things that really will help me. And so I recorded them in my passion planner. This is my passion planner. And I get one of these every year. Thank you, passion planner. Shout out to you. And so this is some notes that I took back then. And I recently had an issue where the anxiety started popping up again. And so half of the battle of anxiety is realizing when to enter the battle. Because our fears and insecurities really felt real to me. And that was what was going on. My fears and insecurities really, really felt real. And so I had to learn how to capture my thoughts. And so there was this thing in the devotional that I was reading called Metacognition. And metacognition is where you gain an awareness and an understanding of your thought process. So you take the thoughts that you have and you begin to take them and you think about your thoughts. So what was the things that were triggering me? What was it that was triggering my anxiety at that time? One of the things that was triggering my anxiety was that I had to go through this whole process I was the fear of death and the fear of leaving my family. And then as a full-figured woman, um, I read this thing that, have you ever seen anybody that lived past 65 that was over 300 pounds? That thing really stuck with me. I was like, oh my God, am I gonna die? You know? And so all of these things was what was triggering me. So I had to rethink that. I really had to take and identify my triggers. That was one of the things I had to do, was to identify my trigger, what was causing me to react this way. So I had to move past those fears. The next thing what I started to do was write them down. Case in point, my passion planner, okay? So when I began to write those things down, I began to separate that stuff out. Okay, what's leading this? I'm a baptized believer, so I believe that fear should not be leading me, but only the Spirit of God should lead me. So I had to take and say, this is not of God, because the fear is not of God. He said, a perfect love casts out all fear. So I had to realize that this is not of God. Okay, so the next thing I had to do was take note of these triggers. So these triggers, I was like, okay, I got to make some changes. I had to make some changes. So the changes began with doing my diet and exercising. So I began to start journaling. Instead of freaking out about it, I would journal. I loved exercising, but I had to find now, because I couldn't do certain things, the exercises I loved, lifting weights. I love those lifting weights with my sons. You know, when I would go to the gym with both of my sons, I would lift weights with them. So I loved doing that. But couldn't do certain things because anything would trigger my head. So I had to learn how to do a meditation. I had to learn to do other things, other forms of exercises that would not trigger that, but yet still gave me that release, that time. You see what I'm saying? Those other things. So taking my thoughts and capturing them. So, and the last thing was bringing them to my reality, that this is not who I am. Coming into realization of who Shireen is. So, I hung out with that scripture in 2 Corinthians 10:3. 2 Corinthians 10 and 5, where it says, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. So, for those that are believers, and if you're not, that's okay. But those that are believers, I had to capture those thoughts and bring them into captivity. You see, because anything that is not of God that's coming and is plaguing me, taking me off of my distraction and my focus. Because I plan to see I have a friend, her name is Sam. She calls her grandbaby her glam baby. I love it. So I have 3 adult children that are moving forward in their lives and in their relationships. And I want to dance at their weddings. I want to hold my future glam babies. I intend to be a glamma. I want to dance at the wedding with my husband. My husband and I have a bucket list of things to do. We have businesses to continue to flourish. You see, so I can't allow my fears to trap me and hold me, because it's not of God. So on tonight, I just wanted to encourage you all and let you know, if you're battling with anxiety, do capture those thoughts. You're not by yourself. You're not by yourself. I've been there, and sometimes it comes up where I can't sleep at night. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going down this path. Not tonight, Satan. We're not doing this. So until next time, you have a good one where your voice will be heard.